What is it? This can't be true.
The church was so quiet Damon could hear his own heartbeat. White lilies lined every pew. Sunlight poured through the stained glass windows and painted the wooden floor in gold and blue. 200 guests sat in their seats, dressed sharp, fanning themselves gently, smiling the kind of smiles that only show up at weddings and baby showers. At the altar, Damon Destiny Webb stood in a fitted black tuxedo, looking like the answer to somebody's prayer. His edge-up was crisp. His shoes gleamed. His pocket square sat perfectly folded against his chest. He was 28 years old and about to marry the love of his life. Everything was perfect. Then his phone buzzed. He had left it in his inside jacket pocket because Jerome, his little brother and best man, had told him, quote, "If you bring that phone to the altar, I will personally throw it into the baptism pool." So Damon had kept it silenced. But silenced was not the same as off. And right now, against his chest, it was buzzing like something urgent. Something that could not wait. He ignored it the first time. Then it buzzed again. Jerome leaned close and whispered out the side of his mouth, "Bro, do not answer that." Damon ignored him. His eyes were fixed on the doors at the back of the church, the doors that would open any second now, the doors that Destiny would walk through in her white dress with her father on her arm. The phone buzzed a third time. Something cold moved through Damon's chest. Not nervousness, not excitement, something else, something that made the back of his neck prickle. He had learned the hard way to pay attention to that feeling. He reached into his jacket. Jerome grabbed his arm. "Damon, I'm not playing with you." "1 second, Damon said quietly. He pulled out the phone. The screen read, Dr. Owen's Atlanta Medical Center, *, the world around him, the lilies, the music, the 200 guests, the sunlight, all of it went blurry. Dr. Nathaniel Owens did not make personal calls on Saturday mornings unless it was important. And the only thing Dr. Owens had to tell Damon Webb that was important enough to interrupt a wedding was the kind of news that could stop a man's heart right there at the altar. Damon stared at the screen. Jerome read it over his shoulder and went completely still. The phone kept ringing. Damon pressed answer. Now. Before we get to that phone call, before we find out what Dr. Owens said to Damon Webb on his wedding day, we need to go back. 6 weeks back. Because you need to understand who Damon was before the diagnosis. You need to understand what he stood to lose. And you need to understand how a man who ran a half marathon, coached high school basketball, and had never spent a single night in a hospital in his life ended up standing at an altar with a call from an oncologist lighting up his phone. This is not just a story about cancer. This is a story about love that refused to fold. Faith that survived every reason to give up. And a miracle that left a room full of medical professionals with absolutely nothing to say. Stay with me. This one is going to stay with you. And before we dive in, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell right now so you never miss a story. And if you know someone who's been through something hard, someone who needs to be reminded that their story is not over, share this with them today. Now let's go back to where this all began, 6 weeks before the wedding, Atlanta, Georgia. A Tuesday evening in early spring. The Beltline Trail was quiet at 7 in the evening, that golden hour when the city smells like cut grass in someone's backyard grill. Damon was on his 4th mile, his sneakers slapping a steady rhythm against the pavement, his Bluetooth earbuds pulling him through a playlist that had carried him through every hard workout for the past 2 years. He felt good. No, he felt great. That was the thing that would haunt him later. The fact that he felt great. He passed 2 women walking a golden retriever. He nodded. They smiled. An old man on a bench gave him a thumbs up as he jogged past. Damon grinned and kept his pace. Then the pain hit. It was not dramatic. It did not knock him off his feet or make him cry out. It was quieter than that. A deep, dull ache in his lower back, right side, that curled around his ribs like a hand squeezing. Damon slowed his pace and pressed his hand against his side. He had felt something similar 2 weeks ago during practice. And once before that, about a month back after a long Friday, he had chalked it up to muscle strain. He was a PE teacher. He was on his feet 8 hours a day. He coached varsity basketball 3 evenings a week. His body worked hard. Sometimes it complained. That was normal. He slowed to a walk. The pain faded after about a minute. He kept walking. He did not tell Destiny when he got home that night. Destiny Cross was sitting cross-legged on their couch with a wedding binder the size of a small country open across her lap. Her reading glasses were pushed up on her forehead. Her twist-out was wrapped in a silk scarf, and she had on an oversized Atlanta Hawks hoodie that was technically Damon's. She looked up when he walked in. "How was the run?" Destiny asked. "Good," Damon answered, pulling off his sneakers at the door. 4 miles. "You stretch after." "Because last time, I stretched," Damon said, because he had not stretched. Destiny gave him the look. The look that said she was a registered nurse with 5 years of experience at Grady Memorial Hospital, and she could tell when someone was lying about their physical health. But she let it go. "Come look at this centerpiece situation," she said, patting the cushion beside her. "The florist sent 3 options, and 2 of them make me want to cry, and not in a good way." Damon dropped onto the couch beside her. He looked at the photographs in the binder. He made the right noises. He agreed with her choices and disagreed with the ones she hated, and laughed when she impersonated the florist's voice. He did not mention the pain in his side, because Damon Webb had spent his whole life being the strong one, the one who handled things. He had grown up watching his mother Beverly work double shifts at the post office to keep him and Jerome in school clothes and church shoes. He had watched her handle everything: the bills, the grief when their father left, the broken furnace in January, the neighbors' noise complaints, the church choir drama, all of it, without ever once appearing to fall apart. That was the model Damon had grown up with. You handle it. You carry it quietly. You do not make your problems other people's burdens, so the pain in his side became his private project. He told himself it would pass. It did not pass. By the end of that first week, the ache had become something more insistent. Not constant, but regular. Visiting him every day like a tenant that hadn't been invited but refused to leave. He started waking up at night. Once or twice he felt a low-grade exhaustion that had no connection to how much sleep he had gotten. He chalked that up to wedding stress, premarital nerves, life. The following Monday he was running drills with his varsity squad when one of his players, a 16-year-old named Darius who was too observant for his own good, said, "Coach, you good? You keep pressing your side like something hurts." "I'm fine," Damon said immediately. "You sure?" "Because my uncle had something like." "Darius, run the drill." Darius ran the drill. But that afternoon, standing alone in the gym after the boys had gone home, Damon stood in front of the supply closet mirror and pressed his fingers against his right side. The pain responded immediately. Sharp and immediate. That was the moment he knew it wasn't just muscle strain. He did not want to know what it was, but he also could not ignore it anymore. He called his doctor the next morning without telling Destiny. His primary care physician, Dr. Marcia Coleman, saw him 2 days later. She was thorough and practical, and she did not like the way his symptoms were presenting. She ordered blood work and an imaging scan. She kept her face carefully neutral while she wrote up the referrals, which told Damon more than her words did. "Let's not jump to conclusions," Dr. Coleman said, sliding the paperwork across the desk. "What are the conclusions we're not jumping to?" Damon asked. Dr. Coleman looked at him. "Let's just get the results first." He drove home and told Destiny the appointment had gone fine. He was not fine. The scan was scheduled for Thursday. The results would take a few days to process. Damon went to work. He ran practice. He sat with Destiny at the kitchen table and tasted 3 different options for wedding cake: lemon pound, red velvet, and a coconut almond that Destiny declared a masterpiece. He laughed. He helped her write out the last of the invitations. He played his part perfectly. Inside, he was terrified. The call came on a Friday. He was standing in the school parking lot after dismissal, watching his players pile into their parents' cars when his phone rang. It was Dr. Coleman's office. They asked if he could come in. Today. As soon as possible. Damon stood in that parking lot long after all the cars had gone. He sat in his truck for 11 minutes before he started the engine. The drive to Dr. Coleman's office should have taken 23 minutes. It felt like it lasted a year. The doctor did not make him wait. She came directly to the consultation room, closed the door behind her, and sat down across from him with a folder in her hands. She had that look on her face again, the careful one, the professional one, the one that was working very hard to hold itself together. "Damon," Dr. Coleman said, "your imaging results came back." He nodded. "Reviewed them, and I've already been in contact with a specialist." She opened the folder. "I want to refer you to oncology." The word landed in the room like something heavy dropped from a great height. Oncology. Damon heard the word, and for a strange moment he felt completely calm. Like his brain simply refused to accept the information. Like it had quietly closed its doors and put up a sign that said "Not today, *, what are we looking at?" Damon asked. His voice was steady. He was proud of his voice for being steady. Dr. Coleman exhaled slowly. Imaging shows a mass in the region of your right kidney with what appears to be involvement of surrounding tissue. She paused. It presents at an advanced stage, Damon. I want a specialist to confirm everything, but based on what I'm seeing. She stopped. Damon said quietly. She met his eyes. It looks like stage 4 renal cell carcinoma. Stage 4. The room shrank. The walls moved inward by several feet. The fluorescent light above buzzed at a frequency Damon had never noticed before. The folder in Dr. Coleman's hands blurred and then sharpened and then blurred again. Stage 4, Damon repeated. Not a question, just the words moving through his mouth because they needed somewhere to go. No, this is. How long? He asked. Dr. Coleman folded her hands. Damon, that's a question for the oncologist. Dr. Coleman. His voice did not crack, it hardened. How long? She looked at him for a long time. Without treatment, she said carefully, we could be looking at weeks. A month, perhaps. With treatment, the prognosis is... She stopped. I really want you to speak with Dr. Owens before... A month, Damon said. She did not correct him. A month, not years. Not even months, plural. Weeks. Maybe 4 of them. While he had been tasting wedding cake and comparing centerpiece photographs and pretending his back pain was from running too hard, something had been growing inside his body. Silently, aggressively, without asking his permission, and by the time anyone had thought to look, it was already stage 4. He had 6 weeks until his wedding, and possibly less than that to live. He drove home in the rain. He did not remember much about the drive. He remembered the radio was off. He remembered that every traffic light seemed to turn red at the exact moment he approached it, as if the city itself was making him slow down. He remembered pulling into the apartment complex parking lot and sitting there in the truck with the engine off and the rain tapping on the roof like something patient. He thought about Destiny. She was probably home right now, probably just getting off her shift. She would have changed out of her scrubs. She would have those reading glasses pushed up on her forehead and something good-smelling on the stove and her phone open to some Instagram reel that she would make him watch even though he'd pretend he wasn't interested. He sat in that parking lot for a long time. Then he got out of the truck, walked upstairs, and knocked on the door. He had his keys. He did not use them. He knocked like a stranger. He was not sure why. Destiny opened the door. She looked at him once. Her face changed. Damon, Destiny said. What happened? He tried to smile. The smile did not come. Can I come in? He asked. You live here, she said, pulling the door open wider. Her eyes were already worried. Already scanning him with those nurses' eyes that cataloged everything, his color, his posture, the tension in his jaw, the way he was holding himself like something might break if he moved too fast. He stepped inside. The apartment smelled like garlic and onion. Something was on the stove. Destiny had been cooking. The wedding binder was on the coffee table. 2 different paint swatches for the honeymoon suite, she'd been going back and forth for a week, were propped against the wall. Damon stood in the middle of the living room and could not figure out how to begin. Scaring me, Destiny said. I know, he said. Damon. I went to see Dr. Coleman, he said. Destiny went very still. When? Today, and a few days ago for the scan. Before that, she did blood work. Destiny stared at him. He could see her processing, the nurse in her assembling the sequence of events, calculating what kind of results require a specialist referral and same-day appointments. What did she find? Destiny asked. Damon sat down on the couch, not because his legs gave out, because he needed to not be standing for what he was about to say. Destiny sat beside him. She did not touch him yet. She was waiting. It's cancer, Damon said. The 2 words sat between them. Destiny's breath left her body in one long, slow exhale. Stage 4, Damon continued. Kidney. She said it's been developing for a while. She referred me to an oncologist. Guy named Dr. Owens. I have an appointment Monday. Destiny's hands were in her lap. They were perfectly still. She was doing the thing she did when she was trying to hold herself together in a clinical situation, breathing through her nose, eyes focused, controlling the reaction because the reaction would not help right now. "'Kay," she said. Damon looked at her. Her voice broke just slightly. She pressed her lips together. Okay as in I'm processing, okay as in, she stopped. Destiny. Don't, she said, one sharp word. Then she stood up, walked to the kitchen, turned off the stove, stood with her back to him, both hands gripping the counter. Damon waited. The apartment was quiet. Long have you known something was wrong? Destiny asked. Her back was still to him. He considered lying. About 3 weeks, he said. Her shoulders tensed. 3 weeks, she repeated. I didn't want to worry you. You didn't want to worry me. She turned around, her eyes were wet. Not crying, Destiny Cross did not cry easily, but the tears were there right at the edge. Damon, we are 6 weeks from our wedding. We have been planning our lives together and you had symptoms for 3 weeks and you didn't tell me. I thought it was muscle strain. You're engaged to a nurse. Her voice went up. Then she caught it and brought it back down. She pressed the heel of her hand against her forehead. I could have if you had told me earlier. It wouldn't have changed the stage, Damon said quietly. That stopped her. She knew he was right. She hated that he was right. Destiny walked back to the couch. She sat down beside him. This time she grabbed his hand, both of hers around one of his, holding it like something she was not willing to let go. What did Coleman say about prognosis? Destiny asked. Without treatment. About a month. Destiny's grip tightened. With treatment? Don't know yet, that's what Monday is for, she nodded, still holding his hand. Looking at the wall, then she said very quietly, I need a minute. As long as you need, Damon told her. She stood up, walked to the bedroom, closed the door. Damon sat alone in the living room. The wedding binder sat on the coffee table. The paint swatches leaned against the wall. Outside, the rain was still falling. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's TV was on. Life was happening everywhere around him, completely unaffected. He sat there for a long time. He was not sure what he was waiting for. Then the bedroom door opened. Destiny walked out. Her eyes were red, but something in her face was different. The kind of different that happens when a person goes somewhere private and has a necessary argument with themselves and comes back having made a decision. She walked straight to him, sat down directly in front of him, took both his hands in hers and looked him dead in the eyes. I need to say something, Destiny said. Damon waited. I'm angry at you for not telling me sooner, she said. I want you to know that. I am not going to pretend I am not. I know, he said, but here is what else I know. Her voice was steady now, iron steady. The voice she used when a patient was crashing and the room was chaotic and somebody needed to be the calm in the middle of it. You are not doing this alone. You hear me. Not the appointments, not the fear, not any of it. I am right here. Damon felt something move in his chest. Destiny, I did not agree to marry you only when things were easy, she said. So you need to stop trying to protect me from things that are hard. That is not your job anymore. Your job is to let me in. Can you do that? He looked at her, this woman, this stubborn, brilliant, fierce woman who had somehow decided that loving him was worth every difficult thing that came with it. Yes, Damon said. His voice finally broke, just slightly. I can do that. She pulled him in. Her arms wrapped around him and his head dropped to her shoulder, and for the first time since leaving Dr. Coleman's office, Damon Webb stopped trying to hold himself together. He didn't have to hold himself together right now. Someone else had a grip on him. Monday came quickly. Dr. Nathaniel Owens ran his practice from a floor of Atlanta Medical Center that smelled like sanitizer and recycled air. He was a tall, methodical man with close-cropped gray at his temples, and reading glasses he kept taking off and putting back on while he reviewed files. He spoke carefully. He chose his words like a man who understood that the wrong ones could collapse a person. He reviewed Damon's scans and blood work for several minutes in silence, while Damon and Destiny sat across from him. Destiny was in full nurse mode, back straight, eyes sharp, prepared to translate everything the doctor said into both clinical reality and human terms simultaneously. Jerome had wanted to come. Beverly had wanted to come. Damon had told both of them no. He needed this to be contained. He needed to hear the information before he had to watch his family receive it. Dr. Owens finally set down the file. Mr. Webb, Dr. Owens said, I've reviewed everything Dr. Coleman sent over and I ran my own analysis. I want to be direct with you because I think you're someone who can handle directness. I am, Damon said. Cancer has spread beyond the primary site. We're seeing involvement in the lymph nodes and some early indicators in surrounding tissue. He folded his hands. Stage 4 renal cell carcinoma is a serious diagnosis. I won't minimize that for you. What are the treatment options? Destiny asked. Dr. Owens looked at her. He seemed to appreciate the precision of the question. We're going to discuss immunotherapy as a primary approach. There are also targeted drug therapies that have shown some response in cases like this. We would want to begin treatment as soon as possible. The prognosis? Destiny asked. Her voice did not waver. Dr. Owens was quiet for a moment. Without intervention, we're looking at 3 to 4 weeks, he said. With aggressive treatment, we work to extend that timeline and improve quality of life. But I want to be honest with both of you. At stage 4, we are managing the disease. The goal becomes time and quality. Managing, not curing. Damon heard the difference. He sat with it for a moment, 3 to 4 weeks, 6 weeks until his wedding. The math was brutal. Have a question, Damon said. Of course, Dr. Owens responded. My wedding is in 6 weeks. Is there any version of this where I make it to my wedding? Dr. Owens looked at him for a long time. That is our goal, he said carefully, not a yes, not a no, a doctor's answer. The kind that lives in the space between hope and honesty. Damon nodded. They scheduled the first treatment session for Wednesday. On the drive home, Damon was quiet. Destiny drove. She had insisted. She kept her eyes on the road and one hand on the steering wheel and the other on his knee the entire drive home. Neither of them spoke for 10 minutes. Then Damon said, I need to tell my mom. I know, Destiny said, and Jerome. I know, another silence. I'm scared, Destiny, Damon said. It was the first time he had said it out loud. To anyone, including himself, Destiny did not take her eyes off the road, but her hand pressed firmer against his knee. I know, baby, she said quietly. Me too. That night, after Destiny fell asleep, or pretended to fall asleep, which he couldn't be sure about, Damon slipped out of bed. He walked to the small desk in the corner of their living room where he usually graded papers and reviewed play diagrams. He opened his laptop. He stared at the blank document for a long time. Then he began to type. The first letter was for Destiny. The second was for his mother, Beverly. The third was for Jerome. He did not know if anyone would ever read them. He prayed they wouldn't, but he needed them to exist. He needed to say the things that were too heavy to speak out loud. The things he would never be able to look someone in the eye and say without watching them fall apart. By 4 a.m, his face was wet. By 5, the letters were done. He saved the document, closed the laptop, went back to bed. Destiny was on her side facing away from him. But as soon as he lay down, her hand found his under the blanket. She had not been asleep. She never said a word about it. She just held his hand in the dark. And somehow, in that small, quiet gesture, Damon found just enough strength to close his eyes. He did not know what was coming, but she was still there. And for tonight, that was enough. Now I know some of you are sitting there thinking, will Damon even make it to his wedding day? Will Destiny have to watch the man she loves fade away before they even get the chance to say, I do? And what about those goodbye letters he wrote in the middle of the night? Will anyone ever read them? The answers are coming. But trust me when I say, what happens next is going to shake you to your core. Because when the family finds out about Damon's diagnosis, everything changes. His mother, Beverly, does something that leaves everyone in tears. His brother Jerome cracks a joke that turns into the most heartbreaking moment of the entire story. And just when things start looking up, just when there's finally a glimmer of hope, something happens that almost destroys everything. What Damon did not know, what none of them knew, was that the weeks ahead would bring not just fear and pain and setbacks, but something that Dr. Nathaniel Owens would later describe in a medical conference as, quote, one of the most unexpected developments I have seen in 22 years of oncology. Something was coming that nobody had a clinical explanation for, something that would leave a room full of doctors quiet. But before that miracle arrived, Damon Webb and Destiny Cross were going to have to fight for every single day. Together. And the fight was just beginning. For those of you who are caught up, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had to deliver news so devastating that the words physically would not leave your mouth? Like your brain formed the sentence, but your throat just said no. Like every cell in your body was trying to protect the person sitting in front of you by refusing to let the truth come out. That is exactly where Damon Webb found himself 3 days after his oncology appointment, standing in his mother's kitchen. Surrounded by the smell of cornbread and collard greens, looking into the face of the woman who had raised him, and trying to tell her that her firstborn son might not live to see next month, Beverly Webb's kitchen was the same kitchen Damon had grown up in. Same yellow curtains, same wooden cross hanging above the refrigerator, same Bible sitting on the counter next to the spice rack, dog-eared, highlighted, held together with faith and Scotch tape. Beverly had lived in this house for 26 years. She had raised 2 boys here. She had buried a marriage here. She had survived everything life had thrown at her inside these walls, and now her son was about to throw something else. Beverly was stirring a pot on the stove when Damon walked in. Jerome was already there, sitting at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone, a half-eaten piece of cornbread in front of him. There he is, Beverly said without turning around. You're late. Food's almost cold. Sorry, Mama, Damon said. Jerome looked up from his phone. You good? You look like you just saw a ghost. I'm fine, Damon said. Jerome studied him for a second longer than normal. then went back to his phone. Destiny had offered to come. Damon had told her no, this was something he needed to do himself. She had kissed him at the door and said, "I'll be right here when you get back." Then she had added quieter, "And Damon, don't you dare sugarcoat it. They deserve the truth." She was right. He knew she was right. That did not make this easier. Beverly set a plate of food in front of him. Baked chicken, collard greens, cornbread, mac and cheese with the crispy edges the way she knew he liked it. She poured him a glass of sweet tea and sat down across from him with that look she always had when her boys were home, satisfaction mixed with a quiet kind of pride. "Eat," Beverly said. Damon looked at the plate. He could not eat. "Mama," Damon said. Something in his voice made Beverly stop moving. Jerome looked up again. This time he did not look away. "Need to tell y'all something," Damon said. The kitchen went quiet. The only sound was the pot still simmering on the stove. Beverly folded her hands on the table. "What is it, baby?" Damon opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He tried again. "I went to the doctor last week," he said. Beverly's expression shifted. Not dramatically, just a slight narrowing of her eyes, a mother's radar activating. "They found something," Damon continued. Jerome set his phone down. "What do you mean they found something?" Jerome asked. Damon looked at his brother, then at his mother, then at the wooden cross above the refrigerator. "It's cancer," Damon said. "Stage 4, kidney." Silence that followed was the loudest thing Damon had ever heard. Beverly did not move. She sat perfectly still with her hands folded on the table and her eyes locked on her son's face. She looked like a woman whose body had received the information but whose soul was still several seconds behind, running to catch up. Jerome's reaction was different. His jaw tightened. His nostrils flared. He pushed back from the table slightly like he needed physical distance from the words. Jerome said. "Oncologist confirmed it Monday," Damon said. "Dr. Owens at Atlanta Medical, I start treatment Wednesday." "Stage 4, Jerome repeated. His voice was low, controlled. But his hands were gripping the edge of the table hard enough to turn his knuckles pale. "Yeah," Damon said. "Long have you known?" Jerome asked. "About a week." Jerome stared at him. "A week? You've known for a week and you're just now telling us." "I needed to get the full picture first." "The full picture?" Jerome stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Bro, we're your family. You don't get to sit on something like this for a week and then drop it over dinner like it's casual conversation." "Jerome," Beverly said quietly. "Nah, Mama, nah." Jerome pointed at Damon. "He does this every time. Every single time something hard happens, he goes into his little cave and tries to handle it alone like the rest of us don't exist." The words hit harder than Jerome probably intended because they were true. Damon looked at his brother. "You're right." That stopped Jerome mid-sentence. Jerome said. "Right," Damon repeated. "I should have told you sooner. Both of you, I was wrong." Jerome stood there for a moment. The anger flickered. Then it softened. Then it cracked. And underneath it was the thing Jerome had been trying very hard to hide since the moment Damon said the word cancer. Fear, raw, unfiltered fear. Jerome sat back down slowly. He pressed both palms against his face. His shoulders rose and fell with one deep breath, then another. "Bad, is it?" Jerome asked through his hands. Damon hesitated. "Bad," he said quietly. "Without treatment, they said 3 to 4 weeks." Jerome's hands dropped from his face. His eyes were red. Nobody spoke. Then Beverly Webb did something that neither of her sons expected. She stood up from the table, walked around to where Damon was sitting, placed both of her hands on his shoulders, and bowed her head. She started praying, not quietly, not politely, not the kind of soft, careful prayer you hear at church when someone is trying to sound nice. This was different. Beverly Webb prayed like she was standing at the gates of heaven and banging on the door. She prayed like she was making a demand, not a request. She prayed like a woman who had already lost a husband to abandonment and a sister to heart disease and was standing before God saying, with every fiber of her being, "You will not take my son." "Lord, I am bringing my boy to you right now," Beverly said. Her voice shook with authority. "And I am asking you, I am telling you, that this is not his time. This disease does not have the final say. You do. You wrote the first word of his life and you will write the last one, and I am standing right here telling every devil in hell that my son's story is not over." Jerome's head dropped. Damon closed his eyes. Tears slid down his face. Beverly kept praying for 7 straight minutes. When she finally lifted her head, her eyes were wet but her jaw was set. She looked like a woman who had just signed a contract with God and fully expected him to honor it. She squeezed Damon's shoulders. "Now eat your food," Beverly said. "It's getting cold." And that right there was Beverly Webb. A woman who could go from spiritual warfare to mac and cheese in the span of 10 seconds and see absolutely no contradiction. Damon laughed. It was a small laugh. Fragile, but real. He picked up his fork and ate. The news spread through the family within 48 hours. Cousins called. Aunts texted. Uncles sent voice notes that ranged from supportive to awkwardly long. And then Auntie Carol showed up. Carol Denise Robinson was Beverly's older sister by 4 years, and she arrived at Damon and Destiny's apartment 3 days later with 3 full-covered casserole dishes, a bottle of blessed olive oil she claimed had been anointed by a visiting bishop from Memphis, and a personality that could fill a stadium. "Where is my nephew?" Auntie Carol announced as she walked through the door without knocking. "Where is my baby?" Damon was sitting on the couch. He barely had time to stand before Auntie Carol crossed the room in 4 aggressive strides and wrapped him in a hug so tight his ribs creaked. "Auntie Carol, hush, I'm holding you." Destiny stood in the kitchen doorway watching with wide eyes. Auntie Carol held him for a solid 30 seconds. Then she pulled back, gripped his face with both hands, and studied him like she was performing her own medical evaluation. "You look thin," Auntie Carol declared. "The same weight I've been for 3 years," Damon said. "Thin," she repeated, ignoring him completely. She turned toward Destiny. "Baby, you feeding him?" "Every day," Destiny said with a slight smile. "Feed him more." Auntie Carol marched into the kitchen and began unpacking her casserole dishes like she was setting up a military supply station. "I brought smothered pork chops, sweet potato casserole, and banana pudding because the Lord told me this boy needs to eat." "The Lord told you that?" Damon asked. "He sure did. It came to me in prayer this morning." "Clear as day." She pointed at the casserole dishes. "Now I also brought this blessed oil. Bishop Watkins laid hands on it himself at Greater Deliverance last Sunday. We are going to anoint your forehead, your hands, and your feet, and we are going to speak healing over every cell in your body." Damon looked at Destiny. Destiny looked at Damon. Neither said a word. Auntie Carol was not a woman you argued with. You simply experienced her and hoped to survive it. Despite the chaos of her delivery, Auntie Carol's love was genuine. She had always been the loudest person in every room and the first person to show up when somebody needed help. Her methods were unconventional. Her volume was excessive. Her casseroles were actually incredible. And underneath all the noise, she carried a heart the size of Texas. That afternoon, while Auntie Carol rearranged their entire kitchen and Destiny quietly led her because sometimes the path of least resistance was the wisest path, Damon received a phone call that changed the direction of his thinking. It was Pastor Raymond Cross, Destiny's father. "Damon," Pastor Cross said. His voice was deep and measured. "Destiny told me everything. I'd like to come see you if that's all right." "Sir," Damon said. "Of course." Pastor Cross arrived that evening. He was a tall man with silver at his temples and the kind of calm presence that made a room feel quieter the moment he walked in. He wore a simple button-down shirt and carried nothing but his Bible and a stillness that felt almost intentional. He shook Damon's hand. He hugged Destiny. He politely declined Auntie Carol's pork chops, which Auntie Carol took as a personal offense that she would likely bring up at the next 3 family gatherings. Then Pastor Cross asked if he and Damon could speak privately. They sat on the apartment balcony. The sun was going down. Atlanta's skyline glowed in the distance. The noise of the city hummed below them like a heartbeat. For a while, neither man spoke. Then Pastor Cross said, "How are you doing, son?" Damon considered giving the easy answer. The Sunday morning answer. The everything is fine answer. Instead, he told the truth. "I'm terrified," Damon said. Pastor Cross nodded. "That's honest." "I wake up every morning and the first thing I think is this the day it gets worse?" "That's natural," Pastor Cross said. "And then I look at Destiny sleeping next to me and I think, what happens to her when I'm gone? Does she move on? Does she?" His voice broke. "Does she find someone else? Build the life we planned with another man?" Pastor Cross was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that Damon would carry with him for the rest of his life. "Damon, I have been pastoring for 31 years. And in that time I have sat with a lot of people who were facing the end of something, a marriage, a career, a life. And the ones who suffered the most were not the ones with the worst circumstances." Damon listened. They were the ones who tried to carry tomorrow's weight today. Words settled in the evening air. Pastor Cross continued. "Right now, you are alive. Right now, Destiny is inside that apartment waiting for you. Right now, you have breath in your lungs and people who love you and a wedding that is still on the calendar." He looked at Damon. "Stay in today, son. Let God handle tomorrow." The first time in weeks, something inside Damon unclenched, not completely, but enough to notice. If you're watching this story right now and something about Damon's fear resonates with you, if you've been carrying something heavy and trying to do it alone, I want you to hear what Pastor Cross just said. Stay in today. Tomorrow has its own weight. You don't have to carry it yet. Drop a comment below if that hit you. And if this story is blessing you, share it with someone who needs it. Now let's keep going. Because things are about to take a turn that nobody saw coming. The first 2 weeks of treatment were brutal. Damon started immunotherapy on a Wednesday morning. Destiny drove him to the hospital. She held his hand in the waiting room. She translated the medical jargon the nurses used because she knew that when you're scared, even simple words stop making sense. The side effects arrived within days. Fatigue like he had never experienced. Not the tiredness that comes after a hard day, the kind that sits in your bones and makes lifting a glass of water feel like an accomplishment. Nausea that came in waves, unpredictable and merciless. Loss of appetite. Brain fog that turned simple conversations into puzzles. Damon's body was fighting a war on 2 fronts, the cancer trying to destroy him and the treatment trying to save him, and he was caught in the middle, exhausted by both. He stopped coaching. The school understood. His assistant coach, a young guy named Terrell, stepped up without being asked. The varsity boys sent a group video message where they all said, "Get well, coach," at the same time, except Darius, who was half a second late and said it twice. Which made everyone in the video laugh and made Damon cry when he watched it alone in the bathroom so Destiny wouldn't see. She saw anyway. She always saw, but she didn't say anything. She just made sure his favorite tea was ready when he came out. Despite the treatment's brutality, the wedding planning continued. This was Destiny's decision. Non-negotiable. She treated the wedding the same way she treated a critical patient, with precision, urgency, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. "We are getting married on that date," Destiny told Beverly one afternoon when Beverly gently suggested they might want to consider postponing. "That date is not moving. If I have to wheel him down the aisle in a hospital bed, we are getting married." Beverly looked at her future daughter-in-law. Then she smiled, a real smile, the kind that said, "This is why my son chose you, all right then," Beverly said. "Let's plan a wedding." And they did. Invitations continued going out. RSVPs continued coming back. The florist confirmed the arrangements. The caterer locked in the menu. Jerome got fitted for his best man tuxedo and sent Damon a selfie with the caption, "Looking better than you and I'm not even the groom." Damon laughed so hard he almost threw up, which was not entirely the treatment's fault. 3 weeks before the wedding, something began to shift. It started small. So small that Damon almost didn't notice. One morning he woke up and the crushing fatigue felt slightly lighter. Not dramatically, not miraculously, just enough to notice. Like someone had removed one brick from a wall that was still heavy, but the difference was real. His appetite improved slightly. He ate half a bowl of oatmeal without nausea. The next day he ate a full bowl. Destiny noticed before he said anything. "You seem stronger today," she said casually one evening while they were watching television. Damon shrugged. "Maybe." She looked at him. Those nurses' eyes scanning again. "No, not maybe, you do." He wanted to believe her, but hope felt dangerous. Because if he let himself believe things were getting better and then they got worse again, the fall would be devastating. Still, the improvement continued. Day after day, small, gradual, steady. Like a tide coming in so slowly you don't notice it until you look down and realize the water is at your ankles. Then came the setback. 18 days before the wedding, Damon went in for a routine checkup. Blood work, vitals, standard monitoring. Nothing unusual, nothing to worry about, that's what they told themselves. The appointment went smoothly. Dr. Owens examined him, reviewed his vitals, asked the standard questions. Everything seemed normal. Then Dr. Owens pulled up the latest blood work on his computer. He studied it for a long moment, longer than normal. His face did that thing doctors' faces do when they see something they weren't expecting, a slight tightening around the eyes, a stillness in the jaw. "What is it?" Destiny asked immediately. Dr. Owens turned the screen slightly away. "Some of these markers have shifted." Damon felt ice move through his veins. "Shifted how?" Destiny pressed. She was in full clinical mode now, leaning forward, eyes locked on the doctor. Dr. Owens chose his words carefully. "Some of the inflammatory markers are elevated compared to last week. It could be a response to the treatment itself. That happens." "Or?" Damon asked. He was learning to listen for the asterisk, or, in doctor language, everything before the or was the comfortable answer. everything after it was the truth. Dr. Owens met his eyes. Or it could indicate new activity. New activity. The two words landed like a punch to the chest. Destiny's hand found Damon's and squeezed. Hard. I want to schedule an additional scan, Dr. Owens said. As soon as possible, likely within the next 48 hours. Okay, Damon said. His voice was steady. But underneath the steadiness, everything was shaking. They drove home in near silence. The hope they had been carefully rebuilding brick by brick, day by day, suddenly felt like glass. One wrong result and it would shatter into 1,000 pieces. That night, Damon could not sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Destiny breathed softly beside him. His mind ran through every scenario. What if the cancer was spreading again? What if the improvement had been temporary? What if they had allowed themselves to hope too soon? At 2 a.m, he got out of bed, walked to the living room, sat on the couch in the dark. His phone was on the coffee table. He picked it up and opened his contacts. He scrolled to Jerome's name. He almost called, then he put the phone down. He sat there for a long time, alone with his thoughts and the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a car passing on the street below. Then he heard footsteps. Jerome appeared in the hallway. Damon blinked. How did you get in here? Destiny gave me a key last week, Jerome said, walking to the couch and sitting down beside him. She told me to come check on you if she texted me. She texted me 11 minutes ago. Damon looked toward the bedroom. That woman. Even when he thought she was asleep, she was looking out for him. Jerome was wearing basketball shorts, a wrinkled t-shirt, and slides. He looked like he had been asleep and had gotten dressed in the dark, which he probably had. Okay, Jerome asked. No, Damon said. Jerome nodded. Cool, me neither. Several minutes they sat in silence, then Jerome spoke. Can I tell you something? Jerome asked. Yeah, been having dreams about you dying. Honesty was unexpected. Jerome usually buried difficult emotions under jokes and deflection. This was different. Almost every night, Jerome continued. I wake up sweating, heart racing, and then I check my phone to make sure nobody called with bad news while I was sleeping. Damon looked at his brother. I didn't know that, Damon said quietly. Yeah, well, Jerome leaned back. I'm not exactly the share your feelings type. Kidding, Damon said. Jerome smiled. A small, tired smile, then the smile faded. Can I ask you something? Jerome said. Yeah. You scared of dying? The question sat in the dark living room like a living thing. Damon thought about it. Yeah, he said finally. But that's not what scares me most. What scares you most? Damon was quiet for a moment. Leaving Destiny, leaving you, leaving Mama. His voice dropped. Missing everything that was supposed to come next. Kids growing old. Watching you actually get your life together. Jerome laughed, a real laugh. The kind that breaks through heaviness because it has to. Low blow, Jerome said. I'm dying. I can say what I want, Damon said. They both laughed. And then the laughter turned into something else. Something that neither of them planned or expected. Jerome's eyes filled with tears. Damon's followed. And for the first time since they were children, since the night their father packed a bag and walked out the front door and neither of them understood why, the Webb brothers sat together and let the walls come down. Jerome cried quietly, not dramatically, not loudly, just tears rolling down his face while he stared at the floor. I can't lose you, bro, Jerome whispered. I know I act like nothing gets to me, but I can't. Damon put his arm around his brother's shoulder. Not going to lose me, Damon said. He did not know if that was true, but he said it anyway. Because sometimes the people you love need to hear the words more than you need to believe them. The scan was scheduled for 2 days later. Those 48 hours were the longest of Damon's life, longer than the initial diagnosis, longer than the first treatment session. Because this time, he had allowed himself to hope. He had tasted what improvement felt like, and the possibility of having it ripped away was almost worse than never having it at all. Destiny handled the waiting by staying busy. She cleaned the apartment twice. She reorganized the wedding binder. She called the venue to confirm every detail for the 3rd time. The event coordinator at the venue, a woman named Patricia, told Destiny gently that everything was confirmed and nothing had changed since her last call 2 hours ago. I know, Destiny said. I'm just checking. Patricia paused. Honey, are you okay? Destiny's chin trembled, just for a second. Then she pulled herself together. I'm fine, Destiny said. Thank you, Patricia. She hung up, walked to the bathroom, closed the door, and broke down. She sat on the edge of the bathtub and cried in a way she had not allowed herself to cry since the diagnosis. Not the controlled tears of a nurse managing a crisis. These were the tears of a woman who was terrified of losing the man she loved and was running out of places to put the fear. She did not hear the front door open. She did not hear the footsteps in the hallway, but she heard the knock on the bathroom door. "Destiny," a deep voice said. It was not Damon. It was her father. Pastor Cross had come without being called, without being asked. Because 31 years of pastoring had taught him that the people who say "I'm fine" the loudest are usually the ones who need you the most. Destiny opened the door. Her face was wet. Her eyes were swollen. Pastor Cross looked at his daughter. Then he opened his arms. She walked into them like a little girl, and she cried for a long time. Pastor Cross held her and said nothing. He did not quote scripture. He did not offer advice. He did not try to fix it. He just held his daughter and let her feel every terrifying thing she had been bottling up for weeks. When her breathing finally slowed, he pulled back and looked at her. "You have been so strong," Pastor Cross said. Destiny wiped her eyes. "I have to be," he said gently. "You don't, not every minute, not with me." Her chin trembled again. "What if the scan is bad, Daddy?" she whispered. "What if we were wrong to hope?" Pastor Cross held her face in his hands. His eyes, the same deep brown eyes he had given her, looked directly into hers. "Baby girl," he said, "hope is never wrong. Even when the outcome is uncertain, the act of hopping is never wasted. Because hope is what keeps you standing when everything else tries to knock you down." He kissed her forehead. "Now dry your eyes," Pastor Cross said, "and let's go take care of your husband." "He's not my husband yet," Destiny said with a weak smile. Pastor Cross smiled back. "He's been your husband since the day you decided to stay." Scan happened the next morning. Damon lay on the narrow table while the machine hummed around him. He stared at the ceiling and counted the tiles because counting gave his brain something to do besides panic. 17 tiles across, 12 tiles down, 204 tiles total. He counted them 3 times. When it was over, the technician told him the results would take a few days. A few days. In cancer time, a few days is a lifetime. Damon and Destiny went home. They waited. They tried to eat. They tried to watch television. They tried to have normal conversations about normal things. Nothing felt normal. On the second evening, Destiny found something on Damon's laptop. She had not been snooping. She had been looking for a document related to the wedding venue, a contract they needed to review. The laptop was open on the desk. The document she needed was not on the screen. Instead, she found a folder labeled simply, letters, asterisk. She knew she should close it. She knew it was private. But something made her click. There were 3 files inside, asterisk for Destiny, asterisk for Mama, asterisk for Jerome, asterisk. She stared at the screen. Goodbye letters. Damon had written goodbye letters. She did not open them. She could not yet, not now. But knowing they existed, knowing that while she had been sleeping, her future husband had been sitting at this desk in the middle of the night writing words he thought she would read after he was gone, that knowledge nearly broke her. She closed the laptop, walked to the living room where Damon was sitting, sat down beside him. "I saw the letters," Destiny said. Damon went very still. "I didn't read them," she added quickly. "But I saw them." Silence. "Damon," he looked at her. "You wrote us goodbye letters," she said. Her voice was quiet, not angry, just heavy. "I needed to," he said. "When?" "The night after the diagnosis, after you fell asleep." Destiny pressed her lips together, tears building. "I'm not going to tell you it's okay," she said. "Because it's not okay that you felt like you needed to do that. Destiny, but I understand why you did." A tear fell. She wiped it quickly. "And here is what I need you to hear right now." He waited. "You are not going to need those letters," Destiny said. "Not today, not next month, not next year, do you hear me?" He looked at her. "We are going to get married," she said. "We are going to grow old, and those letters are going to sit on that laptop and collect digital dust until we are 90 years old and laughing about the time you scared us all half to death." Damon smiled. A small, broken, beautiful smile. "You really believe that?" he asked. "Have to," she said. "And so do you." The call came the next afternoon. Destiny's phone rang. The screen displayed the hospital's number. She answered it standing in the kitchen. Damon sat on the couch watching her face like his entire future depended on what her expression would tell him. Which it did. She listened. At first her face was unreadable, clinical, controlled, then something shifted, her eyes widened, her hand moved to her mouth. Damon stood up. She was still listening, nodding, saying small words. "Yes. Okay. I understand." Then the call ended. She stood there holding the phone, staring at him. "Destiny," Damon said. His heart was hammering. "Talk to me." Her eyes filled with tears. "Scan was clear," she said. The room tilted. "The elevated markers were from the treatment response," she continued. "Not new spread." Damon grabbed the back of the couch to steady himself. "Tumors are stable," Destiny said. Her voice cracked. No new growth, and Damon, she stopped, pressed her hand over her mouth. What? He whispered. Some of the areas they were watching, she said through tears. They're smaller. Silence, not empty silence, full silence. The kind of silence that happens when the universe shifts and everything you thought you knew rearranges itself around a single impossible moment. Damon's knees buckled. He did not fall, but he sat down hard on the couch and covered his face with both hands, and he cried, not the quiet tears of the past few weeks. These were different, heavier, louder. The kind that come from a place so deep you didn't even know it existed until the pressure finally releases. Destiny crossed the room and sat beside him. She pulled him close. He buried his face in her shoulder and sobbed. For the first time since the diagnosis, the weight on his chest lifted, not completely, but enough to breathe. She called Jerome. Jerome shouted so loud Damon could hear him through the phone from across the room. Then Jerome started crying and pretended he wasn't. Not crying, Jerome said, clearly crying. Something's in my eye, both eyes, at the same time. It's allergies. It's March, Destiny said. Atlanta has year-round allergies. Look it up. Beverly's response was simpler. When she heard the news, she went quiet for several seconds. Then she said, I told you. I told God and I told you. Then she started humming a hymn so softly it was almost a whisper. That evening, Damon stood in front of the bedroom mirror. His tuxedo hung on the closet door. The tuxedo he had been fitted for months ago, when life was simple and the biggest decision he faced was choosing between a bow tie and a long tie. He took it off the hanger. Put it on, the jacket was slightly looser than before. Treatment had taken weight off him, but he was still standing, still breathing, still here. He looked at himself in the mirror, and for the first time in weeks, the man looking back did not look like someone preparing to die. He looked like a man getting ready to live. Destiny appeared in the doorway behind him. She leaned against the frame and crossed her arms. Looking good, Mr. Webb, she said. Damon smiled. Good enough to get married? She walked over. Straightened his collar, adjusted his pocket square, then looked up at him. More than good enough, Destiny said. For a moment they just stood there, together, breathing, alive. 2 weeks until the wedding, then one, then the final week arrived. Everything accelerated. Final fittings, last-minute confirmations, rehearsal dinner, family arriving from out of town. Auntie Carol showed up again with 4 more casserole dishes and an opinion about every single decoration choice. The energy was electric, joyful. Alive, and Damon, weak sometimes, tired often, but present in every moment, moved through that final week with a gratitude that ran deeper than words. Because he understood something most grooms never have to learn. This wedding was not guaranteed. This day was not promised. Every moment of it was borrowed time. And he intended to feel every single second. But here is where I need you to pay very close attention. Because what happened on the night before the wedding, the very last night before Damon Webb was supposed to walk down the aisle and marry the woman who had fought beside him through the hardest season of his life, what happened that night almost destroyed everything. It was 11:30 at night. Damon was at his mother's house. Beverly had insisted he stay there the night before the wedding because, as she put it, the groom does not see the bride before the ceremony. That is tradition, and we are not breaking it. Jerome was there too, sleeping on the couch, or pretending to sleep while scrolling through his phone. Damon was in his old bedroom, the same bedroom he had slept in as a teenager. Same posters on the wall, same squeaky bed frame, same crack in the ceiling he used to stare at when he was a kid, imagining what his life would look like someday. He was lying on the bed thinking about tomorrow, about Destiny's face when the doors opened, about the vows he had written, about the life they were about to begin. Then a sharp pain ripped through his side. It came without warning. A sudden, violent cramping that folded him in half. He gasped, reached for the nightstand, missed, fell off the bed. He hit the floor hard. Jerome, he tried to call out, but his voice came out as a whisper. The pain was crushing, blinding. It radiated from his right side through his entire torso. He tried to stand. His legs wouldn't hold him. Jerome, louder this time, footsteps in the hallway. The door burst open. Jerome stood there. His face went white, dropped to the floor beside him. What happened? What's going on? Call Destiny, Damon managed. Something's wrong. Beverly appeared in the doorway. She took one look at her son on the floor and her face became stone. Not panic, focus. Jerome, call 911, Beverly said. Her voice was calm and commanding. 30 years of handling crises in that voice. Now! Jerome already had his phone out. Damon lay on the floor of his childhood bedroom, 14 hours before his wedding, and for the first time since the diagnosis, he felt truly certain that this was it. This was how the story ended. Not at the altar, Not with Destiny, not with I do. But here, on this floor, in this room, with his mother standing over him and his brother shouting into a phone, the ambulance arrived in 8 minutes. Those 8 minutes were the longest of Beverly Webb's life. She sat on the floor beside her son. She held his hand. She prayed quietly, not the thunderous prayer from before, a different kind, a desperate kind, the kind that doesn't have fancy words, just one sentence repeated over and over, please, God, not tonight, please, not tonight. The paramedics came through the door. They moved quickly, efficiently, asking questions Damon could barely answer through the pain. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, Beverly squeezed his hand one more time. You listen to me, Damon Destiny Webb, Beverly said. Her voice was fierce and broken at the same time. You have a wedding tomorrow, and you are going to be there. Do you hear me? Damon looked at his mother through pain-blurred eyes. Yes, ma'am, he whispered. The ambulance doors closed, the sirens started, and somewhere across the city, Destiny Cross's phone rang at midnight with the kind of call that stops your blood. Will Damon make it through the night? Will he make it to the altar? Will the wedding that everybody fought so hard for actually happen? And what about that phone call from Dr. Owens, the one that opened this entire story? What did the doctor say to Damon at the altar that left Jerome completely frozen? The answers are all in the next chapter, and I promise you, what happens next is something you will never forget. For everyone who's been here since the beginning, since that first phone buzz at the altar, since the diagnosis that shattered everything, since Beverly's prayer in the kitchen and Jerome's tears on the couch and Destiny's 5 words that changed the course of this entire story, welcome to the end. But before we get there, let me take you back to where we left off. Because right now, at this very moment, Damon Destiny Webb is in the back of an ambulance. It is 11:47 at night. His wedding is in less than 14 hours. The siren is screaming above him. Red and blue lights are painting the inside of the ambulance in flashes. A paramedic is leaning over him asking questions he can barely hear through the pain tearing through his right side. His mother's prayer is still echoing in his ears. His brother's panicked voice is still ringing in his head. And somewhere across Atlanta, Destiny Cross is about to receive a phone call that will bring her entire world crashing down for the second time. Let me tell you what happened next. Destiny was at her apartment when the call came. She had been lying in bed, not sleeping. Brides don't sleep the night before their wedding, especially brides who have spent the last 6 weeks wondering if there would even be a wedding at all. She was lying on her side, staring at her dress hanging on the closet door. The white fabric caught the streetlight coming through the window and glowed faintly in the dark room. She had been thinking about her vows. Running the words through her mind one more time, adjusting a phrase here, softening a line there. She wanted them perfect. Not because she was a perfectionist, because she understood better than most brides ever would that tomorrow was not guaranteed, that she was getting a day many people had quietly believed would never come, and she wanted every word to carry the weight of what they had survived to get there. Her phone rang at 12:04 a.m. The screen read, Jerome, Jerome did not call at midnight. Jerome texted memes at midnight. Jerome sent voice notes at midnight that were just him beatboxing or complaining about something ridiculous. Jerome calling at midnight meant something was wrong. Destiny answered. Jerome, she said. His voice came through fast and unsteady. Destiny, don't panic. Those 2 words, don't panic, have never once in the history of human language actually prevented someone from panicking. Destiny sat up in bed so fast the room spun. What happened? Destiny said. Damon collapsed. We're on the way to Atlanta Medical right now. The ambulance just left Mama's house. Room went cold. What do you mean he collapsed? Destiny's voice was sharp, clinical, the nurse in her taking over because the woman in her could not afford to feel anything right now. Not yet. Feeling would come later. Right now she needed information. He was in his room, Jerome said. I heard him call my name. When I got there, he was on the floor. He was holding his side. He couldn't stand up. Mama called 911. Destiny was already out of bed, already pulling on clothes, already grabbing her keys. Which hospital? She asked. Atlanta Medical, same floor as Dr. Owens. I'm on my way, Destiny said. She hung up before Jerome could respond. She drove through the city at a speed that would have earned her a ticket on any other night. The streets were mostly empty. Atlanta at midnight on a Friday has a strange quietness to it, like the city is holding its breath between the end of one day and the beginning of another. Destiny gripped the steering wheel with both hands. Her mind was running calculations, the way it always did in emergencies. Side pain, Right side. History of renal cell carcinoma. Possible complications: hemorrhage, obstruction, acute progression, treatment side effect, infection. Each possibility carried a different prognosis, some manageable, some devastating. She forced herself to stop calculating, because the patient was not a patient. The patient was the man she was supposed to marry in 13 hours. She pulled into the hospital parking lot at 12:31 a.m. She ran through the emergency department entrance. The fluorescent lights hit her eyes like an assault. The smell of antiseptic filled her nostrils, a smell she usually associated with work, with routine, with professionalism. Tonight it smelled like fear. She found Jerome and Beverly in the waiting area. Beverly was sitting perfectly straight in a plastic chair. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her lips were moving silently. Praying, always praying. Even now, especially now, Beverly Webb was in conversation with God. Jerome was packing. Back and forth in front of the vending machine like a caged animal. His eyes were red. His hands kept opening and closing at his sides. "Where is he?" Destiny asked. "They took him back 20 minutes ago," Jerome said. "They haven't told us anything yet." Destiny looked at the double doors leading to the treatment area. Every instinct in her body told her to push through them. She worked in a hospital. She knew these hallways. She knew the protocols. She could find him in 4 minutes. But she wasn't staff tonight. Tonight she was family, and family waited. She sat down beside Beverly. Beverly reached over without a word and took Destiny's hand. They sat like that, 3 people bound together by love and terror, for 47 minutes. 47 minutes of silence broken only by the occasional overhead page and the distant beeping of monitors and Jerome's footsteps wearing a path into the linoleum floor. Then the double doors opened. A doctor stepped out. Not Dr. Owens, it was too late at night for the oncologist. This was the emergency physician, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a calm voice. "Family of Damon Webb," she said. All 3 of them stood up simultaneously. "I'm his fiancée," Destiny said. "I'm also a registered nurse. You can be direct." Doctor nodded. She appreciated that. It saved time. "Mr. Webb experienced what appears to be an acute inflammatory episode related to his treatment regimen," the doctor said. "The imaging we ran tonight does not show any new tumor growth or spread. What we're seeing is consistent with a severe reaction to the immunotherapy. Essentially, his immune system responded aggressively, which caused significant pain and muscle cramping in the affected area." Destiny processed the information in seconds. "So it's not progression?" she asked. "No," the doctor confirmed. "It's not progression, it's a treatment response. A painful one. But from an oncological standpoint, this is actually not uncommon at this stage of immunotherapy." Beverly's hand went to her chest. Jerome stopped packing. "Is he okay?" Beverly asked. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were desperate. The doctor nodded. "He's stable. We've managed the pain and the inflammation is already reducing. He's resting now." "We see him?" Destiny asked. "One at a time. He needs to stay calm." Destiny looked at Beverly. "You go first." Beverly shook her head. "No, baby, you go." Destiny hesitated. Then she nodded. The doctor led her through the double doors and down a hallway she had walked 100 times during her own shifts at different hospitals. Same tiles, same lighting, same quiet urgency humming underneath everything. But tonight the hallway felt longer than any hallway she had ever walked. Damon was in a room at the end of the corridor. When Destiny stepped inside, the first thing she saw was the monitor beside his bed. Steady beeping, stable vitals, good numbers. The nurse in her relaxed slightly. Then she looked at him. Damon was lying in the hospital bed with his eyes closed. An IV line ran from his left hand. The hospital gown made him look smaller than he was. Thinner. His face was tired. Not just physically tired, the kind of tired that comes from fighting a battle that never seems to end. Destiny walked to the bedside. She stood there looking at him for several seconds. Then Damon opened his eyes. He looked at her. And despite everything, the pain, the fear, the hospital gown, the IV drip, he smiled. "Hey," Damon said. His voice was rough, scratchy. "Bet you didn't expect to see me in a hospital bed the night before our wedding." Destiny let out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. "You are unbelievable," she said. "That's what they tell me," Damon said. She sat on the edge of the bed, took his hand. Held it carefully, avoiding the IV line. "You scared us," she said quietly. "I scared myself," Damon admitted. "Doctor said it's not progression," Destiny said. "It's a treatment response. Your immune system overreacted." Damon nodded slowly. "Yeah, they told me." "So you're going to be okay," Destiny said, not a question, a statement, a declaration. The same way she had been making declarations since the day he told her about the diagnosis. Damon looked at her. "Am I still getting married tomorrow?" He asked. "Today," Destiny corrected him. "It's after midnight. You're getting married today." He laughed softly, then winced because laughing hurt. "Make me laugh," he said. "Ask stupid questions," she replied. He smiled. She smiled. And for a moment, in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and sounded like beeping monitors, the world felt almost okay. Beverly came in next. She walked straight to the bed, placed both hands on her son's face, and looked at him with an intensity that could have stopped traffic. "Damon and Destiny Webb," Beverly said. "Yes, ma'am," Damon said. "If you ever scare me like that again, I will put you in the ground myself. Do you understand me?" "Yes, ma'am," she kissed his forehead. Then she whispered something in his ear that nobody else heard. Whatever it was, it made Damon's eyes fill with tears. He reached up and squeezed her hand. "Love you, Mama," he said. "Love you more," Beverly said. "Now rest, you've got a big day." Jerome came in last. He stood at the foot of the bed with his hands in his pockets, trying very hard to look casual and failing completely. "Good?" Jerome asked. "I'm good," Damon said. "Cool," Jerome nodded. "Because I already paid for the tuxedo rental and they don't do refunds." Damon laughed, winced again. "Stop making me laugh, man. Almost dying the night before your wedding and I'll consider it." They looked at each other. Jerome's jaw worked like he was chewing on words he didn't know how to say. Then he just said it. "I'm glad you're okay, bro." Simple, honest. "Enough." "Me too," Damon said. The doctors kept Damon for observation until 5 in the morning. By 6, he was discharged with strict instructions to rest, hydrate, and avoid any unnecessary physical strain. The emergency physician told him carefully that attending a wedding was technically unnecessary physical strain. Damon told her respectfully that she was wrong. Destiny drove him to Beverly's house. She helped him inside. She made sure he had water, medication, and a clear path to the bathroom. Then she looked at him lying in his childhood bed, exhausted and stubborn and alive, and she shook her head. "I will see you at the altar," Destiny said. "Be there," Damon replied. "You better be," she said. Then she left to go get ready for her wedding. The morning of the ceremony broke clear and golden. Atlanta in early spring can be unpredictable. Rain, cloud cover, humidity that turns a tuxedo into a sauna. But this morning the sky was blue, deep, endless blue. The kind of sky that looks like it was painted by someone who wanted the day to feel special. The church was the same one Destiny had grown up attending. Greater Hope Baptist Church on the south side. Red brick exterior, white double doors. A steeple that reached toward heaven like a hand asking for a blessing. By 10 in the morning, guests had begun arriving. 200 people in their Sunday best, hats and heels and tailored suits. Perfume mixing with cologne mixing with the smell of fresh flowers that filled every corner of the sanctuary. Many of these guests knew about Damon's diagnosis. Word had traveled through families and friend groups and prayer chains. Some had quietly wondered if this day would ever happen. Some had prepared themselves for a funeral instead of a wedding. And now here they were, watching lilies being arranged, and hearing music being tested, and feeling the unmistakable energy of a celebration that had refused to be canceled. In the bridal suite, Destiny stood before a full-length mirror. Her dress was stunning. A fitted bodice with delicate lace sleeves that tapered to her wrists. A flowing skirt that moved like water when she walked. She had chosen it 4 months ago before the diagnosis, when the biggest concern on her mind was whether the train was too long for the center aisle. Now, looking at herself in the mirror, she saw more than a bride. She saw a survivor. Not of cancer, that was Damon's fight. But of fear, of uncertainty, of the kind of emotional devastation that makes most people walk away. She had not walked away. She was standing here in a white dress, ready. Her maid of honor, a woman named Keisha who had been her best friend since middle school, stood behind her making final adjustments to her veil. "Girl," Keisha said, stepping back to look at her. "If that man doesn't cry when he sees you, he's not human." Destiny laughed. "He's going to cry. He cries at dog commercials." "Then he's going to flood the church," Keisha said. They laughed together, and underneath the laughter was something deeper, something both of them felt but neither needed to say. Gratitude that this moment was actually happening. Across the building, in a smaller room that smelled like cologne and nervous energy, Damon was getting dressed. Jerome stood beside him, helping with cufflinks because Damon's hands were shaking, partly from nerves, partly from residual weakness, partly from the simple, overwhelming reality that 12 hours ago he had been on a hospital floor, and now he was putting on a tuxedo. "You shaking like a leaf," Jerome observed. "I'm aware," Damon said. "You need water, a chair, a paper bag. I need you to shut up and fix this cufflink." Jerome grinned. "There he is, there's the groom." He fixed the cufflink, stepped back, looked at his brother. "You look good, Dee," Jerome said quietly. "Get emotional on me right now," Damon said. "Not emotional, my eyes are just sweating." "Your eyes are sweating. It's hot in here. It's 68 degrees. I run warm." They looked at each other. And despite every joke, despite every deflection, something passed between them. Something that didn't need words. "I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad we get to do this." At 11 o'clock, the ceremony began. Guests rose to their feet. The music started, a gentle piano piece that Destiny had chosen because it was the song that had been playing in the restaurant on their first date. The sound filled the sanctuary and settled over the congregation like something sacred. Damon stood at the altar. His heart was racing. His hands were clasped in front of him. His eyes were fixed on the white double doors at the back of the church. Jerome stood beside him. Beverly sat in the front row, dressed in lavender, clutching a handkerchief she had already used twice, and the ceremony hadn't even started. Auntie Carol sat beside her wearing a hat so large it partially blocked the view of 3 guests behind her, none of whom dared to complain. Pastor Cross stood at the altar in his robes. His Bible was open. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried the kind of emotion that only a father giving away his daughter can understand. The doors opened. Every conversation stopped, every head turned. And there she was, Destiny Cross, standing in the doorway, white dress catching the sunlight that poured through the stained glass, her father beside her, her arm linked through his. Her bouquet trembling slightly in her hands, the only visible sign that she was nervous. She looked at Damon, Damon looked at her, and everything else disappeared, the guests. The music, the flowers, the months of fear, the hospital rooms, the scans, the pain. The letters he had written at 3 in the morning. The night he spent on a stretcher 12 hours ago. All of it fell away. There was only her walking toward him, one step at a time. Damon's eyes filled with tears before she was halfway down the aisle. Jerome noticed. He leaned over and whispered, "Told you." Damon didn't even hear him. When Destiny reached the altar, Pastor Cross placed his daughter's hand in Damon's. He looked at the young man standing before him and nodded once. Slowly. A nod that carried everything: approval, respect, admiration, and a quiet acknowledgement that this man had earned the right to stand here. The ceremony began. Pastor Cross spoke about love. Not the easy kind, not the Hollywood kind. The kind that survives hospital waiting rooms and midnight phone calls and scan results that can go either way. The kind that chooses to stay when leaving would be simpler. The kind that gets tested by fire and comes out stronger on the other side. Then it was time for the vows. Damon went first. He had written his vows on a small card. He pulled it from his jacket pocket. His hands were shaking so badly the card trembled like a leaf in wind. He looked at the card, then he looked at Destiny, then he put the card back in his pocket. He didn't need it. "Destiny," Damon began. His voice cracked on her name. He paused, breathed, continued. "6 weeks ago, a doctor told me I might not live long enough to stand here today." Church went completely silent. "And I remember sitting in that office thinking, the thing that hurts the most is not dying." He paused, his jaw tightened. "The thing that hurts the most is the thought of never getting to marry you." Several guests wiped tears from their eyes. Beverly's handkerchief was already destroyed. "But here I am," Damon said. His voice steadied, grew stronger. "Standing here, breathing, alive, and I need you to know something." Destiny's eyes were glistening. "I am not standing here because I beat cancer," Damon said. "I am standing here because you refused to let me face it alone." A quiet murmur moved through the crowd. "You stayed," he continued. "When I was scared and too stubborn to admit it. When I pushed you away because I thought carrying it alone was strength. When I wrote letters at 3 in the morning because I thought those might be the last words I ever got to say to the people I love." Destiny's chin trembled. "You stayed," Damon repeated. "And because you stayed, I am standing here today." He reached for her hands. "So I am not just promising to love you in sickness and in health. I already did that. We already lived that, before we even said the words." Tears rolled freely down Destiny's face. "I am promising you something bigger," Damon said. "I am promising to never shut you out again, to let you in when I'm scared, to choose honesty over protection, and to spend every single day I am given, whether that's 50 years or 50 days, making sure you know you are the best thing that ever happened to me." Church erupted. Not an applause, it was too emotional for applause. Just tears. Quiet, collective tears from 200 people who understood exactly what this moment cost. Then it was Destiny's turn. She did not pull out a card. She had memorized every word, because she had been rehearsing them in her head since the night Damon told her the diagnosis. She had been carrying these words for weeks, refining them, shaping them, waiting for the moment she would finally get to say them out loud. "Damon," Destiny began. Her voice was clear, steady, the same voice she used when a patient's life was on the line and someone needed to be the calm in the room. "When you told me you had cancer, I walked into our bedroom and closed the door." Church was silent, and I sat on the edge of our bed and I looked at the ceiling and I asked God one question. She paused. I said, "Why him? Why now? Why us?" Tears ran down her cheeks, but her voice did not waver. "And I didn't get an answer," she said. "Not that night, not the next day, not for weeks." She looked into Damon's eyes. "But somewhere along the way, between the hospital visits and the bad days and the nights I cried in the bathroom because I didn't want you to hear, somewhere in all of that, I realized something." Damon held her gaze. "Answer wasn't in the why," Destiny said. "The answer was in the what. What was I going to do with the time we had? Was I going to spend it being afraid? Or was I going to spend it loving you as hard as I possibly could?" Beverly was openly weeping. Auntie Carol had given up all pretense of composure and was fanning herself with a church program while tears streamed down her face. "I chose love," Destiny said. "Not because I knew things would get better, but because you are worth loving even when things are hard, especially when things are hard." She squeezed his hands. "And if I had to make that choice 1,000 times over in 1,000 different lifetimes, I would choose you every single time." Church broke, 200 people. Crying, some standing, some covering their mouths, some holding each other. Jerome had his head down, shoulders shaking, making absolutely no effort to pretend it was allergies this time. Pastor Cross himself had to pause for several seconds before he could continue the ceremony. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, took a breath, and said, "Well, I've been doing this for 31 years and I have never heard vows like that." Congregation laughed through tears, rings were exchanged. Then Pastor Cross spoke the words everyone had been waiting to hear. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." He looked at Damon. "Son, you may kiss your bride." Damon pulled Destiny close. He kissed her, and the church erupted into the kind of applause that shakes walls and rattles windows and sounds like 200 people exhaling at the same time because they had been holding their breath for 6 weeks. It was done. They were married. The impossible had happened, now. Remember how this story started? Way back at the beginning of episode 1. Damon standing at the altar, his phone buzzing. The screen reading Dr. Owen's Atlanta Medical Center. We're there now. The reception was in full swing. The venue was beautiful, string lights, white tablecloths, a DJ booth where Jerome had somehow negotiated himself a 15-minute set that he was taking very seriously. Guests danced. Families laughed. Children ran between tables. Auntie Carol was telling anyone who would listen about the blessed olive oil and how she had personally anointed Damon's forehead 3 weeks ago, and look at him now, dancing at his own wedding, praise God. Damon and Destiny were on the dance floor. Their first dance as husband and wife. A slow song, her head on his shoulder, his arms around her, swaying gently, neither of them speaking, just breathing, together. Then Damon felt the buzz against his chest, his phone, still in his jacket pocket. He almost ignored it, almost. But that feeling came back, the cold prickle at the back of his neck. The one that told him to pay attention. He glanced at the screen, Dr. Owen's Atlanta Medical Center, Damon's heart stopped. Destiny felt him tense. She pulled back. "What is it?" "Dr. Owens," Damon said. The color drained from Destiny's face, because they both knew Dr. Owens did not call on weekends. Dr. Owens did not call during receptions. Dr. Owens called when results came back, and results demanded immediate conversation. Last night's emergency room visit had included blood work and imaging. Routine protocol for any cancer patient who presents with acute symptoms. Those results would have been processed overnight and sent to the oncologist for review. And now Dr. Owens was calling, on their wedding day, during their first dance. Damon looked at Destiny. "Answer it," she said. He stepped off the dance floor. Walked to a quiet corner near the exit, pressed answer. "Hello, Damon." Dr. Owens' voice came through, and something about it was different. Not the careful, measured tone Damon was used to, something else, something he couldn't quite place. Doctor, Damon said. Where are you right now? Dr. Owens asked. At my wedding reception. A pause, then Dr. Owens said, Good, the same word, the same strange delivery, the same confusion. We received the full analysis from last night's imaging and blood work this morning, Dr. Owens continued. I've been reviewing it for the past 2 hours. Damon's pulse hammered in his ears. I had 2 other specialists review it independently, Dr. Owens said. Damon closed his eyes. And then I reviewed it a 3rd time myself. Doctor, what does it say? Damon asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. Dr. Owens was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried something Damon had never heard from him before. In all the appointments, all the scans, all the careful clinical conversations, emotion. The tumors have decreased significantly since your last scan, Dr. Owens said. Damon leaned against the wall. The lymph node involvement has reduced substantially, Dr. Owens continued. Your inflammatory markers, the ones that concerned us last week, they're not just stable, they've dropped to near normal levels. Damon's knees went weak. I have been practicing oncology for 22 years, Dr. Owens said. His voice was thick, almost breaking. And I do not use the word lightly, but what I am seeing in your results is the closest thing to inexplicable that I have encountered in my career. Tears began streaming down Damon's face. This does not mean you are cured, Dr. Owens added carefully, because he was still a doctor, still precise, still honest. We have a long road ahead, more treatment. More monitoring, more scans. Damon whispered. Dr. Owens laughed softly, a sound Damon had never heard from him. But today, Damon, today is a very good day. Stay at your reception, dance with your wife, and we will talk on Monday. The call ended. Damon stood against the wall, his phone in his hand, tears running down his face, the muffled sound of music and laughter drifting through the door beside him. He stood there for a long time, then he walked back inside. Destiny was waiting near the dance floor. She had been watching the door. The moment she saw his face, the tears, the expression he was wearing, her hand went to her mouth. Damon, she said. He walked straight to her, took both her hands, looked into her eyes. Tumors are shrinking, he said. Destiny stared at him. The markers are dropping, he continued. Dr. Owens said he reviewed it 3 times, had 2 other specialists confirm it. Destiny's eyes filled. He said it's the closest thing to inexplicable he's seen in 22 years. Destiny's knees buckled slightly. Damon caught her, held her. She pressed her face into his chest and sobbed, not the quiet, controlled tears of a nurse. The tears of a woman who had spent 6 weeks bracing for the worst and had just been handed something she was almost afraid to believe. Jerome saw them from across the room. He walked over, read the situation instantly. What happened? Jerome asked. Damon told him. Jerome's face went through 4 emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, processing, understanding, and then something that cracked his entire expression wide open. Are you serious? Jerome whispered. Dead serious, Damon said, then caught himself. Bad choice of words, but yeah. Jerome grabbed his brother in a hug so fierce it lifted Damon slightly off the ground. Beverly found out next. When Damon told her, she did not speak for a full 10 seconds. She just looked at him. Then she looked up at the ceiling. Then she said very quietly, I told you and you listened. Then she started crying and laughing at the same time, which made Auntie Carol rush over demanding to know what happened, which led to Auntie Carol screaming, I knew it. I knew the oil would work. Which led to the entire reception finding out within approximately 90 seconds. The room erupted. People who had come to this wedding carrying quiet dread, carrying the unspoken fear that they were celebrating a union that might not last the year. Those same people were now standing on their feet, clapping, crying, embracing each other, lifting their hands, shouting praises. The DJ stopped the music. The room went quiet. And Jerome who deflected everything with humor, Jerome who hid behind jokes because vulnerability terrified him, Jerome took the microphone. I'm not going to make a long speech, Jerome said. His voice was rough. But I need everybody in this room to hear something. 100 people listened. Weeks ago, a doctor told my brother he had 3 to 4 weeks to live. Jerome's jaw tightened. And I went home that night and I sat in my apartment and I could not breathe because I could not imagine a world without my brother in it. Room was completely still. But Damon didn't quit, Jerome said. And Destiny didn't quit. And my mama didn't quit. And apparently God didn't quit either. He looked at Damon. So here's what I want to say. His eyes were shining. To my brother, my best friend, the man who just got married and just got the best news of his life on the same day, he raised his glass. You were never supposed to be here, but you are, and I have never been prouder of anyone in my entire life." Room exploded, applause, tears, standing ovation. The kind of noise that comes from deep in people's chests when they witness something they will never forget. The reception continued late into the night, dancing, laughter, stories, hugs that lasted longer than usual because everyone understood that tonight was not ordinary. Tonight was sacred. At the end of the evening, Damon stepped outside for air. The stars were out. The night was warm. The sound of the reception was muffled behind the door. He stood alone for a moment, looking up, breathing, alive. Then he heard footsteps. He turned. Dr. Owens was walking toward him. He had come quietly, without announcement. He was dressed in a simple suit, not his white coat. He looked different outside the hospital, more human, less clinical. "You came," Damon said. "I wouldn't have missed it," Dr. Owens replied. They stood together in the quiet night. "Can I ask you something?" Damon said. "Of course," Dr. Owens responded. "In your professional opinion, what happened to me, Dr.?" Owens looked at the sky, then back at Damon. "Medically, your body responded to the immunotherapy in a way that exceeded every statistical model we have." He paused. "The degree of tumor reduction, the speed of marker normalization, the overall trajectory, none of it follows the expected pattern for your stage and diagnosis." "What does that mean?" Damon asked. Dr. Owens smiled. A rare smile. The kind that appears on a scientist's face when science is not enough to explain what he is seeing. "It means I am going to monitor you very closely," Dr. Owens said. "And it means I am going to study your case very carefully. And it means that 22 years of medical training have taught me a great deal about the human body." He looked at Damon. "But every now and then, someone reminds me that there are things medicine cannot fully explain." The years that followed were not without difficulty. Damon continued treatment. He continued monitoring. There were good days and hard days. Scans that brought relief and scans that brought anxiety. The shadow of cancer never fully disappeared. It became something he lived alongside rather than something he lived under. But he lived. He went back to coaching. His varsity squad made the state playoffs the following year. Darius, the observant 16-year-old who had noticed him pressing his side during practice, scored the winning basket in the semifinal and pointed at Damon on the sideline while the crowd went crazy. He and Destiny bought a house. A small brick house with a backyard and a porch and yellow curtains that Beverly picked out because she insisted yellow curtains brought good energy. Damon did not argue. 2 years after the wedding, their daughter was born. They named her Hope, because that was the word that had carried them through the darkest chapter of their lives. Hope Deshawn Webb. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, born screaming. Destiny cried. Damon cried. Jerome cried and blamed it on allergies again. Beverly held her granddaughter for the first time and whispered, "There you are. We've been waiting for you." 5 years after his diagnosis, Damon and Destiny started a foundation. The Webb Foundation for Families Fighting Forward. It began small, a few volunteers, a handful of donations, a simple mission. Help families facing life-threatening illness keep hope alive. They provided rides to treatment, meals for struggling households, counseling resources, financial assistance. And perhaps most importantly, connection. Survivors paired with newly diagnosed patients. People who had been through the fire sitting with people who were just entering it and saying the words that matter most. "You are not alone." The foundation grew, slowly at first, then faster, hundreds of families, then thousands. One afternoon, nearly 7 years after his diagnosis, a woman approached Damon at a foundation event. She was holding a photograph of a young boy smiling beside a hospital bed. "My son watches your videos," the woman said, tears in her eyes. "There were days he wanted to stop fighting, but he saw your story and he said, if Mr. Webb can keep going, so can I." Damon looked at the photograph, then at the woman. Then he felt something inside his chest that was bigger than words, purpose. This was why he survived, not just for himself, not just for Destiny or Hope or Jerome or Beverly, for this boy, for this mother. For every person who needed proof that the worst chapter does not have to be the last one. 10 years after his diagnosis, the Webb Foundation hosted its largest annual gathering. Thousands attended. Families, doctors, survivors, volunteers. The room was alive with laughter and music and the unmistakable energy of people who had fought hard and were still standing. Damon was asked to deliver the closing speech. He stood on stage, looked out at the crowd, and for a moment the room blurred. Not from tears, from the sheer, overwhelming reality of where he was standing. A decade ago, he had been given 3 to 4 weeks to live. Now he was standing in a room full of people whose lives had been touched by his survival. He took a breath. "Years ago," Damon began, "a doctor told me I had less than a month to live." Room listened. "And I remember thinking my story was over." He paused. "But I was wrong." A murmur of recognition moved through the crowd. "The truth is, none of us know how our stories end. We don't control every diagnosis. We don't control every setback. We don't control every scan result." His voice strengthened. "But we control how we respond." Heads nodded throughout the audience. "We can choose hope when fear tells us to quit. We can choose faith when the numbers don't add up. We can choose love when walking away would be easier." His eyes found Destiny in the crowd. She was holding Hope on her lap, both of them watching him, both of them smiling. "Some people think my story is about surviving cancer," Damon said. He shook his head. "It's not." Room went quiet. "My story is about learning how precious life is. It's about a woman who refused to leave when things got hard, a mother who prayed like she was going to war, a brother who showed up at midnight because someone texted him, a doctor who had the humility to admit that some things are bigger than science." His voice cracked. "And it's about a God who writes endings that nobody sees coming." He looked across the room. "So if you're sitting here tonight and you're in the middle of your hardest chapter, if you're scared, if you're tired, if you're wondering whether your story is over," he leaned into the microphone, "let me tell you something." Room held its breath. "As long as you are breathing, your story is still being written." Room erupted. Standing ovation. Tears, applause that lasted for nearly 2 full minutes. People holding each other. People who had never met embracing like family because in that room, in that moment they were. That night, Damon walked outside with Destiny and Hope. The stars were out. The same stars he had looked at on his wedding night. The same sky. The same breath in his lungs, but everything was different because he was different. Looked up at him. She was 7 years old, bright, curious, already too smart for her own good. Destiny's genes at work. "Daddy," Hope said. "Yay, baby. Is it true the doctors said you were going to die?" He knelt down to her level, looked into her eyes, the same deep brown eyes that Destiny had, that Pastor Cross had, that would carry this family forward long after Damon was gone. "Yeah, baby," he said gently. "They did." "You scared?" "Very scared." "Then how did you keep going?" He smiled. "Because I learned something important." "What?" He looked at Destiny, then back at Hope. "That life is a gift," he said. "And gifts aren't measured by how long they last. They're measured by how much love you put into them." Hope thought about that for a moment. Then she nodded, slowly. Like she understood more than a 7-year-old should, she reached up and took his hand. Destiny took the other, and together, 3 people bound by love, shaped by fire, alive against every odd, they walked into the night, toward tomorrow. Toward whatever came next, together. And here is the lesson I want to leave you with tonight. Damon Webb was given 3 to 4 weeks to live. He is still here, still breathing, still coaching, still loving, still standing. But the miracle of his story was never just that he survived. The miracle was what he did with the time he was given. He let people in when his instinct was to shut them out. He allowed himself to be loved when he felt undeserving. He built something that helped thousands of families face their darkest moments with a little more courage and a little less loneliness. And the people around him, Destiny, who chose to stay. Beverly, who chose to pray. Jerome, who chose to show up. Pastor Cross, who chose to speak wisdom. Dr. Owens, who chose humility over certainty. Every single one of them played a role in a miracle that none of them could have created alone. So if you're watching this tonight and you're carrying something heavy, a diagnosis, a loss, a fear, a chapter that feels like it might be the last one, hear me when I say this. Your story is not over. Not today, not yet. As long as you are breathing, there is still a page left to be written. And you do not know, you cannot know what God might be preparing on the other side of the thing you're going through right now. Stay in today. Let tomorrow carry its own weight. And never, ever let fear write the last chapter. This has been the story of Damon and Destiny Webb. Thank you for walking through it with me. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment below and tell me what part of this story hit you the hardest. And until next time, keep breathing. Your story is still being written.